Okay, so now we're going to make Rene's potato frittata. A frittata is a thick, open-faced omelet. It's an Italian dish. You can get it in a lot of other Mediterranean countries, you know, along the Mediterranean Sea and throughout Europe and so forth, as cultures start to kind of blend together. And when I say thick, that is a term that is can be used as loosely as somebody's skinny. You know, what does that mean? So ours is going to be very thick. I've seen some of them that are mainly aged and are a little that thick. We call it Rene's potato frittata. Rene was an older guy. He's passed away now, but an older guy, kind of crusty, salty, grouchy old guy that I don't know if you ever met anybody like that, but everybody loved him. You know, he was always kind of a curmudgeon, if you know what that means. But anyway, he used to have a restaurant, worked down on the quarter, and this is one of his dishes. He came back from World War II and kind of used part of his GI Bill and part of a friend's investment, and then he opened up a restaurant, and this was one of the things that they did. I had a little different name for him. Everybody called him Rene. I used to call him Dad. That was the only difference. So I kind of took the liberty of making one or two little different changes on it. I can tell you, I sold a similar dish to this in my restaurant. We did it instead of potatoes. We did it with leftover pasta. And we would put the fillings, we would flavor it with different things. We're going to use mainly bacon, onions, garlic, and some basil and scallions. A little bit of cheese. I've done it with Italian sausage. We've done it with prosciutto. I've done it with capicola. We've done them strictly vegetarian. I have done them with potatoes if we had too many potatoes left over. That's what this was leftover potatoes that were used. The cool thing about it is, and what you should be thinking is, not just how to make the salsa di pomodoro fresco, how to make the pan broiled salmon. It's how do I make this in a restaurant, and how do I make it for a customer? How would I set that up so that when I get an order, I'll start making it. If you read your recipe, which I know all of y'all did already, right? If you read your recipe, this is a dish that takes a little while to cook. You're not going to be able to have somebody order it and then start dicing up onions and dicing up potatoes and cooking those off. Your guest is going to be there 45 minutes waiting for something to come out. So what would you do with it? You know, think about things like that. How would you set up that salmon for restaurant service? The tomato sauce, any other dishes that we did, how would you set those up to do? For omelets, every time you get an omelet, do you want to crack eggs? You start and mix them up and whip them? No, you crack them all together and you use a predetermined size. For a 3-egg omelet, you use a 6-ounce ladle. Boom, and you ladle that in there, and that's what you got. So it's little bitty tricks to start thinking about. How do I lessen my production time and make it easier? Because the easier it is, the quicker you'll be able to do it, the less stress or calls on your line. And here's the big thing. The easier it is to make, the easier it is to train someone how to do it. Okay, so this is a fairly easy recipe. At least what I would say is easy. Anyway, so let's go through and start with our mise en place. And let's do our mise en place. Take a little shot of the board. I hope we can see that. I'll move it around so if you can't see. Let's see if I can pop this up and get a little bit better perspective. That's good, just like that. So, I had to apologize. I pre-diced the potatoes. First week we learned about making dices. The thing I want to remind you about is a dice is a cube. It's the same size all around. It's not flat. It's not angled sides. They're all square when you look at them. They're perfect angles. They're all squared. Okay. You do that so that particularly in this recipe, so that they'll cook evenly. So I've got my potatoes diced. It's about 1.5 quarts. That's about 3, maybe 4 potatoes. If you're somewhere close to that, that's fine. If you're way off, you may need to go to the grocery store to get another potato. Here's how I measure them. The skillet that you're using, I'm using a 10-inch nonstick skillet. If you don't have one, again, you can borrow one from the school. This is how many potatoes will fill this skillet. Okay, because this is going to be a pie, and it's going to be shaped exactly like this skillet is, and the same side as the inside. Okay, so I've got my potatoes done. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to chop our onion. Let me move a little bit of this out the way so I can work safely here. I've already ran my knife across the steel. Remember, 2 fingers on the blade. Wrap your knife, wrap your fingers around the handle. Always keep 2 fingers on the blade. Never do this, okay? When you're holding your knife on the steel, look at that. It's an angle. It's not flat. If it's flat, all you're doing is scuffing up the sides of your knife. If you're going to hold it like this, you're actually flattening your knife blade out and making it duller. So you want to get a 15-degree angle. 15 degrees would be if you took a matchbook. If you have old paper matches, a matchbook would fit right underneath here on it. Okay, so pass it on there a couple times, 5 or 6 times. Take our onion, the root end, the stem end, cut it in half. How much onion do we need? You're right, we need a cup. Good answer. Fingers curl. This goes in our compostable trash. Peel. Half of these onions are going to be about a cup. If you're for this recipe, if you're over a little bit, that's okay. If you don't have enough, you can add a little bit more onion to it, but as long as you're kind of close to the cup. I will tell you, I prefer that you don't change ingredients. Don't add anything that it doesn't call for. Do the recipe as it's intended to be made. Then the next time you make it, if you want to sell it in your restaurant, the next time you make it, then you taste it. And you're tasting it not for what you like. You're not buying your food, okay? You're buying it, but you're not paying your retail price. You're paying for all the ingredients. You want customers to come pay for that food plus the added markup that you put onto it. So you want to make what they need and what they want. It's not anything to do with what you want. So let's cut our onion in dices. When we're doing this, you see where the tip of the blade is? It's all the way up to here. Then I'm taking that tip goes all the way down to the table. And I'm cutting in. Tip goes down. I'm not cutting it off the root. Tip goes down onto table. This comes down. Okay. What I don't want you to do is this. What a common mistake is for people to hold a knife like that and then come down here. And what that means is your knife only got to right here. There's a lot of onion that's left in there. Okay. If you hold like this, you can use your thumb just like you would your guiding hand. Turn it 90 degrees. Fingers curled. You can use these 2 fingers to hold the sides of that onion together. Okay, like that. So you get about a cup. I can tell you with many years of experience, that, my friend, is a cup of onions. I want you to measure so you can visualize. Once you get used to visualizing, and you own the restaurant, then you can do what you want to do. Onions, we got our salt, we got our pepper. I want to get our bacon. Okay. This is thick sliced bacon. If I remember right, it's 10 slices to the pound, either 10 or 12. Normal sliced bacon is called 1822, means there's 18 to 22 slices of bacon to the pound, which is about 3/4 to 9/16 of an ounce for each slice. Cut the bacon in half. Put this one off to the side. Come down the middle. We're pre-dicing our bacon. Come down the middle. My bacon, I'm gonna do cold. My bacon's kind of room temperature right now. So, sorry about that. So it's a little bit harder to cook. Cut. Colder bacon, and then cut it. We want little bitty pieces, squares. We do it like this because what we want to do is render the fat out of the bacon. Render, when you render, it means to melt. So we want to melt some of the fat out of the bacon. Okay. And we're going to use that in our dish. There's our bacon. Put this in a bowl. We got our mise en place set up. You know, mise en place, if you just read the definition of it, it doesn't even come close to defining everything as to what it means. Okay, so that's our bacon, that's the onions. The next thing we're gonna do is our garlic. All right, next let's do some garlic. I got some of it pre-minced here for you already. I just wanted to save the last one just to remind you how to mince garlic, okay? You're gonna use the flat side of your knife, okay? Don't punch the blade. That's not gonna end up good. Put it down. You don't need to turn this thing into a pancake. All you wanna do is crush it a little bit. Just enough to kind of break the skin open. I tend to actually go a little too light sometimes. Let's get a whole clove of garlic. Remember, that's a clove of garlic. This is a head of garlic. Okay. We want to take this little root part off. That's where the roots are coming out. That's hard. It won't ever cook down and get soft. It'll always be there. So for this one, we just want to randomly chop. Now look at my knife. You see where my blades are? The blade is 3 fingers on the blade, and 1 right back here. Okay, because I can choke up on it now. And then we're going to use this rocking back and forth mincing motion. Rock and mince, rock and mince, rock and mince, like rock and bowl, huh? Okay. Get it, pull it all back together and just go through it again. As it starts to spread out, just pull it together, go through it again. You want this a small mince. It doesn't have to be powdery fine, but you do want it, you know, kind of small pieces. You don't want a really big chunk because we want this garlic to spread throughout our recipe. That looks really nice. Let's chiffonade basil. Chiffonade means any big, large, green, leafy vegetable, cut it up in strips. So you could sit there and cut each strip if you wanted, which is a little tough to do, or you can stack them, roll them up, and slice thin. The basil for here is kind of optional. I put it in because we had a good bit of it, and it's in season right now. So why not? You know, like I said, you can kind of ad lib if you want a little bit. I'm trying to think of a word. I don't know what word I was thinking of. So, green onions. Go through and take the bad, dried up, kind of not good looking leaves, maybe the wet ones. And we want to use this hand, you're not the one that's not holding your knife, as your guiding hand. That hand is moving back. It's slowly crawling back. And the blade is right up against my knuckle. We'll do the greens. We're gonna do the greens and the whites. The greens have a more fresher, grassy flavor to them. It tastes green. Green had a flavor. It'd be like grass. We're gonna use the whites too. One thing about this recipe, and the end product, it's really good served with a red sauce. The recipe says salsa rosa. Salsa is Italian or Spanish or Italian. Languages are really close. Don't worry about getting really close to the root of the green onion to where you're going to cut yourself. Okay, so here we got all of our veg prepped. The only last thing we have to do to prep before we cook, finish our eggs. It calls for 8 eggs. I got 7 cracked already. So crack an egg. Okay, so here we are over at the range. I've got my pan heating up over a medium flame. I don't want to do this with too hot of a flame. I'm putting my bacon in and we're going to let that render. If you remember by render, that means we're going to let it cook down. We're going to, for the most part, we're going to make bacon bits. We're just not going to cook them all the way to that crispy stage. The main thing we want from it is the fat. We're going to use the meat, but the main thing that we want to get out of it is the fat. Okay, let's get that bacon kind of scattered around. I think my flame's a little high, as I can hear it is cooking quick. Now, here's where I want you to practice that tossing. We're going to go into some sauté technique. The jump, right? Slide forward. Here's the easy way to do that. You see the sides of the pan is sloped? Don't worry about flipping it up in the air. Use the pan to try to help to flip your food over. You're going to toss your food, you're going to mix it easier, it'll flip around and distribute easier. It'll brown much more evenly than if you used a spoon or a spatula. And by using spoons and spatulas, you'll be scratching up the bottom of your pan more. So what I want you to do is slide it back and forth. Just practice like that. Slide it back and forth. Don't try tossing it in the air yet. Slide it back and forth, and then you're going to slide it a little bit harder. And when you see the bacon kind of come up, all I want you to do is pull the pan back. Look, I'm not flipping up in the air. I don't know if you can see my wrist. I'm not tossing it up high. All I'm doing is this. Is pulling it back, okay? And that bacon will toss. You can swirl it around so everything in that pan will kind of give it a little rotation. Okay, so we're gonna let that bacon render, get some fat out. I know you don't want to sit there and watch that, so we'll be back in just a second. Okay, so look at that bacon. It's been about 3 minutes. Look at the amount of fat that we got out of there. If you do that over a really high pan, you won't get that, okay? The bacon is kind of light brown. It's not really dark brown. So at this time, what we're gonna do, we're gonna add our potatoes. What I didn't tell you, after your potatoes are diced, put them in a bowl. Fill that bowl with water. Drain them off, okay? Refill them with water and just let them set. If you leave these set out at room temperature, they're going to turn brown, okay? And you won't get that color out of it. So let's take our potatoes. Well, let's do this. First thing we got to do, if I remember right, is remove our bacon from the pan and leave the grease. Let me go do that for you and we'll be right back. Okay, so we have our bacon out. We're gonna add our potatoes. It's a lot of potatoes in the skillet. But guess what you're gonna get a lot of practice at? You got it. Slide it forward, pull it back. They'll jump and flip on their own. Turn them, maybe do a little watusi there. Slide it forward, pull them back. Slide it forward, pull them back. Okay? And we're gonna let those go over low to medium heat until they look like they're just softening up a little bit. You don't really want them browned yet, but you want them kind of softened up, cooked. Actually, you want them cooked about half to 3/4 of the way. So instead of having you to have to sit there and watch this, I'm gonna pause the camera and we'll come back. Okay, so we're back. If you notice, our potatoes have a little bit of color to them. You pick one out and taste it. It's still not quite there, but they're starting to soften up. Now we're gonna add our onions. Once we get those onions in there, guess how we're gonna mix them in. Look how quickly and easily they all mix throughout. And they went very even. They're evenly distributed. You wouldn't be able to do that with a spoon. So what we're gonna do now is let these go until the potatoes are pretty much done. So if you think about it, I don't know if you've ever made home fries before, but that's basically what we're doing right here. We're making home fries. Potatoes cooked in bacon grease with onion, and that's what that is. The only thing we're gonna do extra is we're gonna beat some eggs and put some beaten eggs on top of it and turn it into a pie, so it all kinds of holds together. That's the whole theory. We're gonna add a few more seasonings and some good stuff in it, but that's kind of what we have. You have potatoes in the cooler that are starting to go bad, use them. You got sweet potatoes, use them. You got purple potatoes, Yukon Golds or Russian potatoes, little pink ladies, or any of those type of things. Go ahead and use them. This works good with red potatoes. I personally like the skin off of my potatoes when I'm going to cook them like this. But you don't have to. You can leave the skin on if you want to leave the skin off. Particularly red potatoes are really nice with that skin left on it. Sweet potatoes, I would say take them off. We're going to let these go for a little bit more. Don't go far. We're going to be right back. Okay, so our potatoes are now starting to get a little bit of color on them. Let's go ahead and add in our diced onion. Let's get all that in. If we added those onions in first with the potatoes, they would have burned before those potatoes started cooking. And again, you get them mixed through, toss. Now look, see how quick that was? And look how evenly they're distributed all throughout. Okay, just by tossing. Practice that. You can do it with, outside, you can do it with bread cubes. You can do it with dried beans, with rice. You can chop up a potato and go outside and do it. That way if it falls on the ground, it's not a big deal. You don't have to worry about somebody stepping on it or anything like that. So we're gonna let these, those potatoes, before we put the onions in, they probably cook for 8 minutes, 9 minutes over a low heat. So we got our onions in now. We're gonna let them go until the potatoes get a little bit more color, the onions cook through, and then we'll start adding some other seasonings and things like that to it. Okay, so here we are back again. Look at the color on those potatoes now. You can also see the onions are starting to pick up a little color. That's been a good 5 to 7 minutes at least that we were there. you cut away for. You want your potatoes not burned. You don't want your onions burnt, but you do want to get some color because it's all of the potatoes were cooked all the way through a little while ago. But this adds some flavor to it. It's going to add that caramelized kind of nuttiness that we like so much to have. Now, there is something missing on your recipe. I don't know if you caught it. I'm sure y'all did because y'all are pretty swift. What do you do with the garlic that we took out? Well, I mean with the bacon that we took out. That step is missing on there. So what you want to do at this point is where we're going to add the bacon back into it. Okay. We're going to add our garlic into it. All right. We're going to measure out our seasonal. Oh, spoon. We're going to measure out our seasonal and go through with that. I don't want it to sit on one side too long. You see how quick things start to happen fast at this point, so you don't want to let it go too long. Okay, that was a little shy. Ooh, it's a tablespoon. Not a teaspoon. There we go. And we're going to add a little, we're going to add our black pepper. That's just a teaspoon. That's a lot of our flavor going there, man. Take a big old smell. When you smell something like this, do not put your face over the top. You're going to burn your nose. You might burn your eyebrows off. Do like that. Fan it towards you. Okay. We're going to add our scallions. Toss them through. Real important that we get them mixed in right here. Okay. We're going to add our cheese to our eggs. And we're going to fluff those eggs up. Okay, we got that finished, fluffing up good. Get a good little, agitate them good. You're not stirring. You want to beat some air into it. Okay. Just put this out of the way. Give it one last toss. Look at the color now. See, I told you things happen fast. Let's turn your heat off. Take our eggs. Let's go all around. You should come pretty close to covering all the potatoes. We're off the heat. And using a rubber spatula, let's kind of fold some of that curd. Remember, curd is liquid protein that has become solid. It's curdled milk. When it gets all of those chunks in it, it's curdled. Those chunks, that's the protein that's in the milk. Okay, we don't want to go any more than that. Look, you can see we're losing a lot of our liquid. Press it down, get it nice and even on the top. The handle's getting hot. Let's bring it over here. Go right to the oven. Most of your skillets, non-stick skillets, particularly if it's a commercial made one, can withstand the temperature in the oven. Make sure that if you're not sure with yours, when you put it in, check it every couple minutes just to see if it's causing any problems. If it is, go ahead and take it out. And then what you would want to do is just let it sit so that just the carryover heat will cook those eggs all the way through with the potato. And then wrap some foil around the handle, and you can push the egg, you can push your omelet right underneath the broiler in your oven, and that'll finish the top of it. You want to get just a tiny bit brown. When eggs brown, the flavor changes, and to me it's not a desirable flavor. It may be to some people, but not to me. And I think it's just not paying attention to details. So we're going to pull this out in just a couple minutes, and I'll show you how to plate it up. Okay, this is going to be good, man. You're going to like it. Okay, so we've been in the oven with the omelet, frittata, I'm sorry, about 5 minutes maybe, just until the eggs are set. Let's check on it and see how we're doing. So what we're going to be looking for, oh, very important, a dry, not wet, dry kitchen towel. Fold it over a few times. If it's wet, you're gonna burn yourself and it's gonna hurt. So here's what we're looking for. You see everything set, it's a little shiny on the top, but particularly here in the middle, we wanna make sure everything is solid, okay? This one looks like it's good, ready to go. Let's show you how to plate up. Okay, so to plate up, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna take our omelet, right there. We're going to take our plate, invert it, flip it over. This handle's hot. Okay, so using your towel, put your hand on top of your plate, turn the plate over. We're not doing any circus, Olympics or anything, and flipping and tossing. And that's our potato omelet. Let's go ahead and serve. So to do that, we're going to cut it just like we would be cutting a cake or a pie. You decide how many pieces you want to do it in. I'm going to do this in 8. We'll cut it in half, then divide it into 4. Take those 4, divide into 8. Let's pick up a piece. Bring it over here. However you want to serve it, flipped over, just like this. I usually serve it just like it comes out. Okay. Let's try to get you a better picture here if we can. Come in a little bit more. Okay. I'll give you a close-up shot of it in a minute. A little red sauce is what I think goes on it really good. You can put whatever you want. You don't have to put anything. There you have, you can sprinkle a little parsley and garnish if you want. Rene's potato frittata. So this dish is, man, I sold a lot of it in a restaurant. I'm using potatoes because that's what originally it was done with. We did it in a restaurant with leftover pasta that we mix eggs with. If we had bacon, we would use bacon and onions and garlic. If we had Italian sausage, we may do that with it. If we had some pancetta or something along that lines, that's what we use. You could put anything that you want, as long as it's something that goes, pretty much anything you want in it. We sold this for $10.50, $10.95. All day, lunch, dinner, and it was a really good seller, very popular with guests. So that's Rene's potato frittata. I hope yours comes out good.